Very good afternoon. So there's many stories that have been making headlines in the world of business this week, and that is what we're going to be discussing in our interview segment this afternoon on Business Insight with my colleague from the business desk, Kevin Kabuya. That in just a bit. So for now, let's take a look at the stories that are making headlines in the world of business today. My name is Shaban. Welcome to the program. Small-scale farmers who import goods under one container will be required to pay individual taxes once they provide their data to the Kenya Revenue Authority. However, besides custom duties, downtown merchants have for long evaded the taxman's dragnet on their earnings. And our reporter, Jerry Njogu, has more details.
Traders who have been importing goods in groups using one container under one person's name will be required to file the certificate of conformity. They will be required to submit individual PIN numbers, identity cards numbers, and mobile phone numbers. Earlier on, traders had petitioned Parliament against the taxman decision to destroy all goods in a container found with a few contraband items, arguing out that the illicit goods should have been seized. The government has since held discussion with the traders and agreed to grant a waiver on demurrage charges and the cost at container freight stations to enable them clear their cargo. The proposal is, however, said to enable KRA recognize those responsible in bringing in goods through the consolidated imports. Jerry Njogu for Ebro Business News.
Now, Safaricom, one of the telecommunication firms in Kenya, has announced plans to introduce a biometric verification feature for its consumers in a move geared at ending the ever-rising SIM card fraud. According to Safaricom CEO Bob Colimo, customers will be required to provide their fingerprints when swapping their cards and when acquiring new lines. Despite the fact that the telecommunication firm will introduce biometric identification, those who will be found trying to steal from Kenyans will face the full force of the law. At least 5 suspects involved in the SIM swap fraud have been arrested following public outreach. All right, now, youths are encouraged to use their innovative talents in achieving the Big Four agenda. This is from the ICT experts who say youths are very rich in many ideas, which can traverse in the country to improve many business sectors. Now, ICT is the center stage in realizing government's main Big Four agenda and objectives. Speaking during the Presidential Digital Talent at Kenya School of Government, ICT officials say youths should take the available resources on technology or for better income. And at the ground in that particular event is my colleague Victor Maturi, who's online, just to bring us up to speed and to clarify what exactly was being said. A very good afternoon to you, Maturi.
Yes, Nina, I'm getting you. Actually, I'm at the Kenya School of Government, where we have the Presidential Digital Talent Forum, whereby the ball has been rolled back to the youth concerning the achieving a Big Four agenda set by the government. The Big Four agenda are the manufacturing sector, health, food security, affordable housing, and actually the health sector is the biggest beneficiary of this in terms of the ICT. The digitization of cancer services and system to support service delivery is one of the achievements made by the ICT in this health sector. Other sectors such as manufacturing should also have been centered towards achieving the Big Four agenda. Remember that manufacturing is giving the country 70% towards the GDP, and it will be eyeing to give more in terms of the GDP by the year 2030. In terms of the technology and in terms of working in industries, the youth have been urged to actually come to be innovative in terms of giving services delivery. Kenya should also become a global knowledge-based country by making sure they are good ICT frameworks and affordable ICT success. So, it's actually the forum is going on, and some of the PS from Minister of ICT, Minister of Agriculture are here to try and look into modalities on how they can work together with the private sector concerning the achieving the Big Four agenda.
All right, Muturi, before I let you go, thank you very much, by the way, for giving us an informative report. But before I let you go, there's been a cry from the youth that there's no support from the government. So how exactly is the government coming in, or even the private sector coming in, to assist the youth gain the skills so that they can partake in this ventures that they want them to partake in, like the ICT?
Actually, that's one of discussed here. It's about reaching the youth in their county level, building innovative centers on county level. Remember that Kenya now is a devolved country, whereby education is also devolved. So the country connectivity should be put in place to make sure the availability of internet to local communities in the villages, and giving the opportunity to create local jobs, reliable infrastructure to universal connectivity. That has been also discussed here concerning the issue of the youth. So, but the youth are complaining that whatever they're being taught in schools or in universities, or in the universities, they're not getting in the market. So the government said that. Remember that in school, people were told that to learn 20% and 80% should be done by individuals. So they have been encouraged that they should come give more innovative solutions towards achieving the Big Four agenda.
Well, thank you very much, Muturi. That is my colleague Muturi, just looking at the ICT sector and how exactly the youth can engage so as to reach the Big Four, Uhuru Kenyatta's Big Four agenda. Now, we'll be having that story in detail, properly packaged in our subsequent bulletins. This is at 7 p.m. and 9 p.m. Moving on, oil tracking is set to resume in a week's time following the resumption of operations at the oil fields. A stalemate between the host community and the oil exploration company led to the halting of transportation of crude oil from Turkana to Mombasa, causing the company to incur huge losses in the 45-day delay, which cost about 400 million Kenyan shillings.
Africa being transported.
Oil trucking from Turkana to Mombasa is set to resume before the end of next week after operations resumed in the oil fields. Mining Cabinet Secretary John Munyes and Tal Oil Country Managing Director Martin Bogo have said workers who had been evacuated following the 45-day standoff had reported back to work.
With demonstrated goodwill and good faith, the contractor immobilized back into the field about a week ago.
That's good news for us. We've been waiting for this. It has taken us 45 days. We've learned a lot from what has happened in the last 45 days.
Mbogo said the formation of a structured approach to resolving conflicts will supplement the existing Talo Oil project level grievances management system. Residents around the oil fields had for months taken to the streets, blocking the transportation of oil by the 4 trucks, demanding improved security, a fair share of jobs and tenders before operations could resume.
This project could catapult Kenya into a regional leader within East Africa and indeed the rest of the world.
We've already established a grievances mechanism so that in the future, if there are problems, we discuss them and resolve them before they escalate.
The issue on equitable sharing of revenue seems to be a thorny issue the government had to early this month come to a consensus. Kevin Kabuya, Ebru TV Business.
And thank you, Excellency, for launching this.
All right, and that man who just gave that story by the name of Kevin Kavuya has just joined me on set. Before I introduce him, Thursday marks the last episode of Business in the Week. And with that said, I have the pleasure of having my colleague, Kevin Kabuya from the Business Desk, so that he can help clarify and expound on what has been going on in the world of making money this week. A very good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Nina.
You're looking dapper and expensive.
I really appreciate that.
All right, now, Kevin,
Right.
let's start off with the story that has just gone, that we just had on air, which is the oil saga, or rather now Tullow Oil has been given the green light to continue with the production and transportation of oil from Turkana to Mombasa. What are your sentiments, and what exactly do our viewers need to learn from this?
First of all, we have to understand that this is a new frontier that Kenya is going into oil exploration, and also into now transporting now the crude oil that we have been importing for quite some time now. We are now trying to now also get into so that it may be in huge reserves, that we may also export it. And so the way it has been dealt with, and having to listen to the country managing director for Tullow Oil, is that they have now tried to establish contacts with the host communities, that is the Turkana community. They have tried to also make sure that they understand that when this project is now going on, you will also benefit. So the way they're resuming their operations this week is, rather earlier next week, is that it's because there were conflicts, and the host community, they were saying that we need jobs, we need tenders, we need our community to feel the impact of this oil now going to other places.
Which they didn't feel that way. My question would be probably, this is something that we probably do not want to see again.
Yeah.
Do you think that this stalemate for 45 days, which cost 400 million shillings, which is a lot of money, has finally come to an end? Because the Cabinet Secretary of Mining and Petroleum was very sure to tell Kenyans out there that, listen, the taxpayers' money has not gone to waste. This is something that was worth it. The stalemate will not occur again. But we've seen different squabbles in different industries, teachers, doctors, everywhere. So do you think that this time, for sure, this particular industry of mining and petroleum should we be confident enough to believe that it should occur?
I believe even the national government had to come in earlier this week when the Deputy President William Ruto was in the county, I believe earlier this week. And so he actually said it will be upon you to resolve all these issues that we are seeing that are going on in your county, and with regards to the natural resources that you have. And so I believe, and I tend to believe, that such conflicts should not arise, they should not arise, not now, not in the near future. Having in mind countries that have such minerals, you understand? Countries like Nigeria, countries like Angola, these are countries that have huge oil deposits, or even Libya. But when you look at them, it's called the black gold curse. When you have oil, there is always something that follows. So, I mean, we have to believe that it will not have to show up, not now, not in the near future.
All right. We will be following up on that story to see how exactly the community is going to handle the percentage that are going to be given, and the divide between the national government and the county government, if it's all fair and it relates to you. Now, earlier on this week, the Labour Cabinet Secretary, Ukur Yatani, called on to unions to be at the forefront of championing for the welfare of workers. And he said this and added that the Labour unions have to change in the running of affairs at the institution. Expound.
I believe what he categorically was saying is that the unions now have to adapt into trying to put the grievances of the worker, who is now part of the union, first. Because you realize that in Kenya we have so many trade unions. We have like each and every sector has a union. But when you get to listen to the cry of the worker, or the cry of the worker, it's like unheard of. You get to realize that in Kenya, it's really hard to understand what is the minimum wage?
Yeah.
Do we have a minimum wage? Do we have a minimum wage rate per hour? I mean, these are the things that, reading from what the CS was saying, is that now unions have to come from now sitting in offices and all that, and into now putting their actions
They
into
have to be on the ground.
with the workers, and also trying to listen to what actually the workers are saying.
Yes. All right. And hopefully that will work out quite well. Now, Kenya is finding it a challenge to export various products to other country, and COMESA officials say there is need to come up with custom solutions to harmonize trade in many countries in Africa. So that means there's no harmony when it comes to trade in the countries under COMESA in Africa, especially now Kenya, being the hub of East Africa, is finding it a problem.
In trade between, trying to understand this, is that trade between Africa and the rest of the world, it's more of the rest of the world feeds into Africa.
Yeah.
They feed into Africa, but trade within Africa, within it's intra-Africa, it's so minimal.
Which is not supposed to be the case.
Which is not supposed to be the case, because if you see the EU, they trade within themselves. It's quite substantial. The countries in the EU, the countries in Asia. But when you look at it in African countries, countries like Kenya exporting their goods and products into Uganda, or even Tanzania, or in Nigeria exporting their. There is a divide in there, and I believe that suggestion may be good, or rather, because a few months ago there was the signing of the Africa Free Trade Area Continental Agreement between African countries in order to boost the trade volumes between African countries. And so I believe it's time for now Africa, because there has been this song that Africa is rising, there is the Africa 2063. So if that is to be materialized, if that is to happen, then Africa or African countries need to trade between themselves and amongst themselves. When you also look at the East African community, just our neighboring countries, Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, Rwanda, Burundi, and South Sudan and Ethiopia, there is also a disconnect in terms of trade, because you see, like Kenya exports more into Uganda than it imports from Uganda.
But just to make it clear to our viewers, is the disconnect in, does it have much to do with the business that we carry between us? Or, because I think as the East Africa community, there's a lot we have in common.
Sure.
Yeah, so is it us who have the differences, or is it being politicized by our leaders?
I believe I don't want to term it as being politicized by our leaders, but it's in terms of the policies that have been put in place. They're not there to front the Kenya First agenda. They're not there to front an African First agenda. Yes, they are opening the markets. They are opening the spheres for everyone to trade in, but they're not opening it and say, okay, we will have Africa first. We will have Kenya first. So yes, they are opening, and we are seeing an influx in trade from other countries, like from the east, or from Europe and also the Arab world. But you're not seeing what can actually happen if Uganda exports into Kenya the same way Kenya exports into Uganda.
All right. And so we need to prioritize from what you're saying.
Yeah, it's only just a priority.
Yes. Now, the government is coming out to support the small and medium enterprises because they believe this is the best way to reach their goal, which is Uhuru Kenyatta's Big Four agenda. Now, let's maybe just break this down to our viewers, considering the small and medium enterprises, they do participate a lot in creating employment and job creation, and they're currently not in a very, very good state, considering all they've been facing many challenges for the past maybe 2 years or more. So how is the government going to reach this goal?
I believe that the very initiative of the government is to create a very enabling environment for business persons, for business owners to conduct businesses in the country. Keeping in mind it's the SMEs, they are a huge contributor to the GDP of this country, creating opportunities for nearly 6 million people. Those are 6 million jobs. People are having 6 million jobs. And so if the government has to prioritize the part of the Big Four agenda, that is manufacturing and possibly housing, the provision of affordable houses, the government has the ball is in its court to have to provide a very enabling environment where they have to ensure that they tap the potential that lies with SMEs. Keep in mind that there has been so many researches that have been conducted that indicate close to 60% of SMEs, they don't last the third year, right? So an SME will last for three years, but after that, 60% of the SMEs that were created together with one SME, by the time is 3 years or the third year of that SME, it's gone.
It's already gone.
It doesn't exist. Possibly it went down because of finances, because of restrictions, because of
policies, the law.
policies,
Most
everything.
SMEs that start up with loans that they need to pay back.
So by the time it's the third year, it's
They're
gone
down.
because they had to repay loans. The government, there were so many restrictions and everything. Yeah.
All right, now we are supposed to wind up, but still on matters the Big Four agenda, I'd like us to quickly touch on the housing sector, where the private sector and many other stakeholders are now being attracted to the housing sector in the agenda of having affordable housing at the end of the day. And the experts say houses should be designed to meet local quality and efficiency of the market. Is this sustainable? Because the housing sector, we already thought that the government is being over-ambitious by saying that they want to have 500,000 houses in line with affordable housing. So by saying, I mean, Kenyans are not very much confident with that particular line. So having the stakeholders of the private sector coming in, trying to say that they're going to build the houses in to fit the locals and to fit the market, is this something that we can trust? Is it sustainable?
I want to believe that because the transport cabinet secretary James Macharia had some times back indicated that it is in the government's ambitions to create close to 500,000 houses.
Yeah.
That is, they are low cost and that are also affordable for the average man, for the average person to be able to afford them. And so, if it is anything to go by, I mean, it's an idea that is supposed to be supported and also to be bought by the private sector and also the public sector. And one key point is that President Uhuru Kenyatta has always categorically stated that it is not just an initiative that can be supported fully by the government. It is something that it requires the private-public partnership.
Many players have to come in.
Many players have to come in. So it is something that possibly in the next few years, let's say by the year 2021, we need to see that actually there is work in progress and not just rhetorics.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, Kevin.
Yeah,
Thank you
sure.
so much.
I really appreciate it.
It was amazing having you on set. Now, that is Kevin Kabuya, one of our amazing business gurus when it comes to the business desk, right here on Abu TV. Now, don't go anywhere. There's a lot of programming lined up for you, but that's it for Business Insights. Until next week on Tuesday, my name is Shaban. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon.